Hey everyone, I think I forgot. I forgot my light, so hold on one sec. Little light. Little light. That'll work. You can at least see me a little bit better. I look a little shiny because of the light, but who knows? Welcome. That was a train wreck of a start, guys. Happy Friday. I got up at 5 this morning to just work on some stuff in the quiet, made some banana bread, just had a little quiet morning before the rest of the world was up and at it. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to hammer in on questions. I've got quite a few from emails and stuff. So I had an email last 2 weeks ago, actually, somebody sent, and I needed to do research just to make sure I was giving the good legal answer. So Bob had asked me, if I pre-fund a funeral with a trust or an insurance company, can a creditor get at those funds? Great question. And I really wanted to make sure legally I had the right answer for you. So I called NFDA, which is the National Funeral Directors Association, and talked to the gentleman that does a lot of legal for there. And he verified that every state in the US has their own laws in terms of what creditors can get at. So in some states, the seizure laws are written that you cannot seize money from funeral funding. Other laws, it is not in, or other states, it is not included in the law. So it really depends on the state you're in. If a fund is irrevocable, which means the family and the deceased can never have that money back except to pay for the funeral at the time of need, then that it doesn't matter what state you're in, that money can't be seized. It can't be touched by anybody because it's only for funeral related items. However, other states, it just depends on what the law is written in that state for seizures. So hopefully that answers it for you guys. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm headed to go do a bunch of filming at some funeral homes. So I'm going to go do a bunch of videos. I'm not leaving the house as much for work and everything as I was before the pandemic. So I'm going to go do a bunch of videos in one fell swoop today because the kids are going to be with somebody. And so I'm able to go do more today than usual. So that's what I'm headed off to do. How does it take a long time to do what you do? Cindy, if you could be more specific, I don't know what I do that it is you want a time frame on. So I also had a question from Carol. She had asked, why is it taking so long to get my mother's headstone on the grave? So there's a lot more questions I need answered almost to give you an accurate answer for this. Are you in a cold state? If you're in a cold state, they can't pour the foundation at the cemetery until the thaw. And so, until March or April, when the ground is thawed, they can't pour that concrete foundation below the stone. So they can't set the stone until that happens. So that may be one reason that her headstone is not out there, depending where you ordered it from, what type of granite, if it was one that they had in stock or they had to get it from a quarry. So there's a lot of different variables that go into this. With the pandemic, this is going to slow down things substantially. If it's a type of granite that's from overseas, then it's going to be severely delayed because of the pandemic as well, and importing and exporting everything. So there's a lot of variables that go into the headstone and why it may be delayed at this time. Also, headstone companies may have shut down in your area during the quarantine because they were not maybe considered essential. And so that stopped production for several months as well. So it just depends on, one of those, if not all of them, could come into play to delay getting a headstone out to the cemetery right now. Okay, your mom just got her headstone. Had you waited to order it, Stephanie? Hey, Nancy in Scotland. Hey, Joyce. Good morning, everybody. So back over, find my question list. Courtney had asked me on Wednesday's video about reconstruction. Can you go over how you do them and what you do? Well, there's a million types of reconstructions, not a million, but there's a lot of different types of reconstructions. So it really depends what type you're talking about. It could be just from, glue and wax and then cosmetizing to full resection of the skin on the head and rebuilding the whole skull with plaster of Paris and wires and, glue and everything, and then relaying the skin over the face. There's all sorts of different type of reconstruction. Why do you dress a deceased in long sleeves versus short sleeves? So oftentimes if somebody's in the hospital, they're going to have a lot of IV holes in their arms. We can get those kind of sealed with some different types of things, but there may be a lot of bruising. There may be leakage. There may be other things that we encounter because of that type of a situation that we need longer sleeves. Trauma, all sorts of different situations. So there's sometimes we may request longer sleeves, but you would be surprised that most people just bring in long sleeved items regardless. People almost dress someone anticipating that they are cold. And I'm not quite sure why. T-shirts are sometimes brought in, but I find that sometimes even if people bring in just a t-shirt, they'll bring a flannel to go over it or something. So it's interesting how people maybe perceive that the person may be cold, so they want something a little warmer on them. How is New York City keeping up with all the bodies from coronavirus? Well, it has slowed drastically. We really had a 3-week peak in there for a lot of the states. Some states are just now encountering the virus. It's, getting into their states, but hopefully a lot of people have learned from what other states have done, but everything has slowed down in a lot of those peak areas. Have I ever gotten the giggles when I shouldn't have at work? I think I talked about this on Wednesday. Was it just this Wednesday? I feel like there's maybe been a couple times, 1 or 2 times that I've just, maybe during a service, something tickled me or somebody said something to me in the back at a service that made me giggle, but nothing where it was loud and, a lot of people heard or anything. Is it against the law to spread the cremated remains of a deceased on personal property like around the property or home? No, the law is that you must have permission from the landowner. So if it's like a state piece of property, like a lake or a park or something like that, then you must have permission from the state. However, if it's your own property or like a friend's property or woods, then you need just your own permission. So you do not need permission to do that at your home. What do you think about COVID-19 being put on death certificates of people who died from suicide, heart issues, etc.? I talked about it on Wednesday. I think that it can be a contributory cause, but there's a lot of contributory causes to deaths. So I think it can be very misleading that if somebody had COVID-19, that it didn't contribute to the death. If it didn't contribute, then I don't know that it needs to be put on there. Like if somebody had COVID-19 and they happened to get in a car accident, that did not contribute to the death in the accident. So why is it on the death certificate? Just like if the person had diabetes and they died in a car accident, you're not going to put diabetes on unless it was maybe, I don't know, a stroke or something brought on by the diabetes that caused them to lose consciousness, that then caused the car accident, that then, if that was part of the reason for the car accident, then, it should be put on there. But if it was just something that, like a person had a flu or something, you wouldn't put that on if they died in a car accident. So I think there's these extreme gray areas that are being tapped into that probably shouldn't be, but I don't know. I don't know why it's happening or anything. Yes, a lot of hospitals and things, there's so much to it that we don't understand and we don't know. Is it a good idea to have a sealed casket as well as a sealed vault? To me personally, believe that it is all your choice. If you feel like a sealed casket is what you want for your loved one, get a sealed casket. If you don't want a sealed casket, get a non-sealer. It's really a personal choice. A person is, once they're dead, they're dead. They're going to decompose at some rate, whether the casket is sealed or not. They're still going to decompose. Like, you can't change what's going to happen in nature. They may just decompose differently if the casket is sealed or not, if the vault is sealed or not. So it's really all about belief in the shell of a person and their body, their body and such. So it's all personal choice. And I tell families that when I meet with them, like, it's really up to you. It doesn't matter what I think. It's not what I would choose. There's no good, better, best. There is more ornate. There is different materials. There is, how it pleases your eye. And it's up to you to choose what you would want for your loved one. Sorry guys, I'm reading the comments from last week's on Wednesday's video to make sure I'm answering all the questions. Have you ever embalmed a person with body modifications like piercings, implants like horns in their forehead, earlobes, nasal stretchers, and tattoos? Did the piercings cause leakage? Well, a piercing is a healed up hole. It's not an open wound by any means, so it's not going to leak anything. We've had people, I've never done like horn implants. I've never had anybody with that, but all sorts of piercings all over their body, tattoos in all different places. Trying to work with, there's a girl on YouTube that does videos about piercings and just talk about piercings, because we had an individual and she had a unique piercing, and we as a staff didn't know how to put it in and take it out, because we needed to put it back in her, because after the autopsy they had removed all her piercings and we needed to put them back on for viewing. And then the staff that was working needed to take them off the evening after viewing to give her family. So we needed to make sure all of our staff that was working knew how to do those things. So sometimes we need to just get educated if there's new types of piercings or new mechanisms to them, how they hold and how to release them. So, it's good information for us as funeral directors to know those things as well. Why is an embalmed body not dangerous to the public if formaldehyde becomes a gas? Does an embalmed body continually emit gas? Because the formaldehyde is inside the body and it goes into the tissue. So it's not coming off as this gas from the body like you would think. It's not like there's this invisible like mist coming off a body when you're standing there. There's definitely can be some transfer. If the person has on clothing and we took that clothing off them and then somebody else put them on, there could be some transfer there. But it's not, you're not like being poisoned while you're at a visitation in the essence that you're kind of talking about. How do you submit a question to me? Joe asked. So you can email it directly to me, Kari@KariNorthey.com. That's the easiest way for me to get it and to see it. I try and go back to comments and read through comments as often as I can. But there's sometimes somebody's trying to ask me a question and they will post on 10 different videos. And then by the time their 10th post, they're almost yelling at me in written word, like, why are you not answering me? Oh, thank you. I appreciate you coming and being here. Where are you from, RN? Northey for governor. Yeah, no politics for me. Thanks, guys. Someone yelled at me and said I need to not talk politics, and I don't. You guys will not see me really talking politics at all. Just because I talk about COVID, that is not, I'm not talking politics. So don't put words in my mouth. That's one thing that agitates me the most, is putting words in my mouth. How long generally do you take to do a body delivery through to putting them in a casket? Well, when we receive someone into our care, it just depends when viewing's going to be. We're not going to place them in the casket and have them sit in that casket for a week or two. We're going to keep them in a place that way if leaking starts, they don't ruin the interior of the casket, or, so it all depends when the viewing is going to be following making arrangements. If there is a death at home, do you need a medical examiner number before pickup at a facility would? Because if somebody dies at home and is not under a doctor's care, you need to call 911. The ambulance will come. They will do all of the vital checks, and then they will get the medical examiner or coroner involved. And so an investigator will come, inspect, check over the situation, look at medications, make sure if it's something that's going to be deemed as natural, unnatural, and then an investigation, if needed, will begin. I'm an RN located in New York. Awesome. Are you in the city, in the outskirts, or where are you at in New York? And have you been working during the pandemic in a hotspot at all? Why do you dress a deceased in? Yep, Daphne, I just answered that one. All right. Are family members notified when the space is going to be used for someone else? And what do they do with our loved ones? I'm guessing you're asking for when you kind of rent or lease a grave space. So a family is contacted if they want to release the space. Lease again, like not release, but lease again the space. And it's a 25-year contract. So it's not like this is asked every year. This is every 25 or every 50 years. And if the family says no, or they don't renew their lease, then yes, they know what is going to happen. They're not moved. The person is not moved. They are still remaining there. They just don't have a headstone. The new person buried there would then get the headstone placed there. So that's what is happening with the leasing of it. How do you get emotional? How do you not get emotionally upset when you care for children? I focus on what I'm doing. I didn't know that child. Usually, that's my role, is caring for the family and getting that child laid to rest. If I get caught up in the emotions of it and think about what if this was my kid and what if this was my situation, and oh, they must be so hurting so much. Like, it's not my loss. It's when you put yourself in their mindset, that's when you're not going to get anything accomplished. It's not my loss, not my baby, not my kid, not my situation. I'm there as a funeral director to care for them and make sure everything goes the best way it can for them. And I think that's one of the big things, is that so many people think, oh, that would be so sad if it happened to me. But the situation is not about me at all. I'm there as the funeral director. I have to take care of them, or else nothing's getting accomplished. So that's the mindset I'm in. So you have to not have it be about you, which is what so many people just instinctually do. You think about yourself in the situation. My neighbor's husband died at home, and he was placed in a black plastic bag and zipped up in front of his wife and me, who happened to be there. Thought it was insensitive. Any thoughts? Was it the funeral home who did that, or the medical examiner investigator? Do the homeless or poor people get cremated and buried together in a burial plot? Every state, every county, every city does homeless or unclaimed individuals a little different. Some do burials, some do cremation. It just depends on the city and what they do there. Oh, you're in Manhattan, so you are quite busy, I imagine. Are you, what kind of, I want to say ward, that's not the right word. What area of the hospital do you work as an RN in? The funeral home placed him in a black plastic bag. Some funeral homes do that. They use, black pouches or red pouches or some kind of a body pouch to move the individual out. Sometimes, like if it's night, sometimes I'll leave the bag unzipped around the person's face, or if it's a cot cover, So it's not a pouch that they're placed in, just more of you're put on the cot and then there's a cover over it. Sometimes it's a quilt. I'll leave the face uncovered. It just depends where we are if I leave the face uncovered, but a lot of times we have to cover the individual's face if we're exiting facilities and such. That's what they require and they ask us to do. Oh, Rocky, I'm so sorry. Rocky lost his mom yesterday at 95 years old. She did have COVID. I haven't been able to see her for the last month and a half. That's so sad. I asked the funeral director if I could see her and he refused. He said he can text me a photo. Can he refuse this? He said it's a liability for him. If she's going to be embalmed, a lot of funeral directors are saying that if you want to have a viewing of your loved one, that they need to be embalmed and that they're not allowing unembalmed viewing of people who have tested positive for COVID. So it depends on the funeral home. There's not really, it's requirements of the funeral home. You know, if you don't like what the funeral home is saying, you could call another funeral home and ask if another funeral home would allow it. You know, that's the only thing is you got to see what somebody's going to allow. Last week or the week before, somebody had asked me, you know, like somebody doesn't want to embalm and my loved one has COVID and we need to bring them back to another state. What should I do? I said, call a different funeral home. Like there is thousands of funeral directors embalming people that have COVID, but there's others that are scared and won't do it. So it doesn't mean that that's happening at every funeral home. If you don't like the answer, check around and see if somebody else is providing a different situation for viewing and such. But she is contagious still. And so for your safety, he is, you know, definitely telling you that it is a liability for him to allow you to be with somebody who has the virus, because then if you get the virus, it can come back on him and all of his staff that interact with her and such. So I would ask him if you can do embalming, and you know that might be something you have to pay for that because you want to do the viewing. I know that doesn't seem fair right now, but unfortunately because of contagions, that's something that has to happen. So it's a horrible situation. Ooh, mother baby. So you're in maternity ward. That's so fun. I know there's days that are not fun, I'm sure, but little squishy babies. I just thought a sheet or blanket to cover a body when taking out is less of a shocker for loved ones instead of being zipped up in a bag in front of them. Joan, you're right. And a lot of places don't use that anymore, but some still do. And if he was going, he might have been going to get an autopsy. If he was, then they definitely use what you would think of as a body bag or a pouch. So it really depends on what happens next. So Leanne, thank you. That's sweet. I'll take compliments all day. Good morning from Tennessee. Hopefully you have a good day. So thank you guys. You guys always post great questions, great follow-up. So make sure if you're watching this in a replay that you post questions and comments or shoot me an email with them. There's always ways that I'll answer you. I may answer you right in an email, or I may just send it back to you and tell you, hey, I'm going to answer this on my next coffee chat. So there's all sorts of different ways I may respond to you with things. My daughter stated she wants her cremated remains half in Florida and half in New York. Florida has those reef things. How can I honor her wishes in New York? Yeah, the reefs are really cool. How hands-on the family can be with creating them and placing the individual in them. So that is a really cool thing to do, the memorial reefs. You know, you can scatter her, you can place her at a cemetery, you can do all sorts of things with her in New York. You know, it really depends what interest she has, where in New York. If you want it to be like a concrete place in terms of where you can go, that she's in one spot. There's all sorts of different things you can do with cremated or remains. Thank you, RN. Hey, Rhonda. What's the longest time you have had a body at funeral home before cremation? Like standard case, usually it's just a couple, like a couple weeks maybe. There's people though unclaimed that may be a year or more at the medical examiner that we then cremate for them. So it just depends on what the situation is. Joan, of course you're welcome. Thanks, Warren. What is one part of your job that you don't enjoy doing? It depends. Like over time, if I think of my whole career, different parts, night calls are never fun to like go out at 1 a.m., get back, embalm, go home, get a shower, come back in, or, get done embalming, snow blow, then go home, get showered, come back in, and then meet with families for the day. When you're doing kind of the all-encompassing position of a smaller town funeral director, the serious lack of sleep or kind of assuming all roles around the funeral home can get very exhausting and very stressful. And so I think some of that is what can get really old really fast when it comes to everything. So delegating is good. Hiring out some things is good. Over the course of time, I learned those things. I would say that would probably be the best. I hate talking money with families. I'm comfortable with it, but it's not fun saying, oh yeah, so-and-so died. I need to charge you now for that. It's a business at the end of the day though. And I understand that and I get that. And I know that that has to be part of it. Can you guys even hear me? I just realized that I don't even have in my things. I can tell you this is a crazy. Is that better? Guys? Wow. I am off my game this morning. What is one part of your job I hate? Have you seen that video of the grave with it in the grave and inside the window? They look like they're waving or trying to get out. Was a shock. No, I have not seen that. Send me a link if you would to my email. Does cancer stop doing what it does after death and embalming? So it feeds off living cells. And once your cells have stopped recreating, then it dies. Do we work with death doulas? Knocked my sign. Do you work with death doulas? If there was some in the area, there's really not a lot around my area. I think it's a role that's really getting defined and figuring out how they can work along with hospice and how they work along with the funeral directing process then after. So I think it's a role that's really still being defined, but there is a lot more of that happening. Because it's a little more hands-on than hospices in terms of being there for longer extended periods of time and walking the family through things. There's now also funeral doulas where it's basically like a funeral assistant for a family for the funeral home. The only problem that we see is that there's some defensiveness that's built in with some people that they feel like they're doing it to protect the family from the funeral director. And I think if you go into a situation defensively off the bat where you don't even know that there's something you need to be protecting somebody from, you're creating a bad relationship where these need to be good relationships, that people need to be working together. I would be fine if a family came in with somebody helping them, because then I know when they leave, there's somebody keeping them on task. Because I can't be with them at all times. However, if that person comes in and is sitting there trying to talk over you or try and correct you when you're the one giving the professional advice about something, and they're giving erroneous advice or they're giving, misdirected advice, then I think you get this situation that can make the family possibly feel uncomfortable and can get them really confused. So that's the only thing, is that we see maybe that there's some area that needs to really be cultivated within these new roles that are coming up with death doulas and funeral doulas and such. I was 19, I think, when I would have been 19 or 20 when I knew for sure this is what I wanted to do. Thank you, Warren, for responding. I didn't realize I didn't have these in, and I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? As long as you guys can hear me, I'm sure somebody would have told me that I was way too quiet. Hope your family's doing good. Thank you, guys. You're so welcome. A couple more questions. What's the strangest request or item that someone was buried with? So this is one of those questions, like strangest or weirdest. It's all about perception. Like for me and to me, what is strange and weird has to be really up there now. Whereas telling you someone was buried with some cocaine might be strange and weird to you, where it's like doesn't even throw me. So there's a huge, range of what is strange and what is weird when it comes to those things, because there's people buried with literally all sorts of things. I have one video that's on things people have been buried with, and then people comments, all the comments on that video, people are like sharing what they've buried with so-and-so. So go to that video and check that out, because I talk about some of those things, and then reading through what people have, buried with people is really fun and unique, and why they've buried those things with them. That's weird, Callie. Yeah. Oh yeah. Cocaine, like all sorts of drugs and liquor and beer and all that kind of stuff is not uncommon. I don't often see the heavier drugs, but people slip things in all the time with individuals. So all right, one more question. What are we going to get at? I'm really excited to go do some filming today. I've got my big old list. We'll see how many of it I can hammer through while I'm out and about. I posted yesterday in my dashboard, I'm going to start a newsletter. I got to figure out the technology behind that. How do I start a new newsletter and set up the email thing? Because the algorithm to YouTube, only like 10% of subscribers or anybody get notification on new videos or are alerted to new videos in different ways. And so a newsletter would keep you guys a little more up to date on what's going on. I can share some fun tidbits, share some maybe industry articles. So not quite sure what it's totally going to look like for you, but that's something that since yesterday I've been mulling over and working on, and hopefully will get rolled out here soon. So then you can just click to subscribe and get a newsletter every week with kind of the what's happening. One last, do your daughters understand what your job is and not freaked out by it? I suppose being raised with an understanding will eliminate fear. They know in some capacity at 4 and 6 years old, they know as much as they can know and understand. They have gone to the funeral home. They have seen people on tables, the dressing tables and in caskets. And I make it very commonplace for them that they can ask questions. They can look at people. A huge part for children or adult is understanding that when somebody's laying there, that they're actually dead. That if there's blood coming out of them or on them, they're not feeling pain. We grow up, we know that if we see something that looks like it would hurt somebody, it should hurt. So trying to retrain your brain to figure out that it doesn't hurt them is just, you've got to do that for a little while to make yourself understand that it's not connecting with feeling in their physical body at that time. So they've been around the funeral home, and I say, Mommy's going to work. They ask me who's died. They ask me who I'm taking care of. If I say, I don't know, I'll let you know. When I get home, they'll ask. Sometimes they pray for families. Sometimes, if they ask all sorts of great questions, all sorts of questions that kids would usually ask when they get the opportunity or when they're actually talked to about death. But we just talk to them about it regularly and all the time, and it's just kind of common for them. It doesn't mean they understand death better than anybody. It doesn't mean they understand fully what I do, but they know that it's okay, and they know that I'm caring for people. And that, to me, at the end of the day, is all I want them to know, is that I'm taking care of people. I'm taking care of the families. I'm taking care of the dead. I'm taking care of people. And that's what my job is about. So yeah, that's what I'm figuring. They love it. I do have a video on that, on talking to my children about my job. So I do have a video on the channel about that if you want to hunt it down. So, all right, I'm going to hop off. Headed to go. I think I've actually got an interview with one viewer, and then I'm going to head off to work for the day for a little bit, which I'm excited about. So check out my website if you want to check out some podcasts that I've been on, and want to hear a little more content. Make sure you find some good videos you like. Click subscribe if you're not a subscriber. You can't be one of the 10% who gets notifications if you don't subscribe. So make sure you subscribe to catch all of the newest up to date. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, join me for the live premiere of my Bringing Home a Hero video. The story is so good. Get a warm and fuzzy for Saturday morning by watching the video with me tomorrow and chatting with me live while we watch it. So 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, be here. Click subscribe to make sure you can come back and find me. I'll see you guys later. Bye.